I Hate Politics is a podcast about a human activity we love to hate. And this is the I Hate Politics candidate interview with Natalie Zimmerman for Montgomery County Board of Education. I'm Sunil Dasgupta, host of I Hate Politics, a podcast about our neighborhoods, workplaces, schools and streets, and our local governments as they function in diverse, democratic, and sometimes divided societies. As part of the show, we have conversations with local, state, and sometimes federal candidates. Rather than ask them how they stand on a multitude of issues, these conversations go in depth on a few issues. Primary day is May 14th. Mail-in ballots are out. Early voting starts May 2nd. The most important local offices on the ballot in Montgomery County are the 3 Board of Education seats. There are no state or county offices contested this time. Voting for the Board of Education is at large, which means that all voters eligible to vote should vote in all 3 races that are being contested. Districting in the Board of Education races is only for candidacy. You can only run there if you live in the district. Natalie Zimmerman is a second grade MCPS teacher challenging longtime incumbent board member Rebecca Smandrowski for the District 2 seat on the Montgomery County Board of Education. Smandrowski did not respond to our interview requests. You can find interviews with other candidates in the I Hate Politics library on all major streaming platforms. Music for this episode comes from 2 piano compositions from Kensington resident Adam Bobrow. If you want to share your music on the show or know someone else who might want to, please email us at producer@ihppod.org. Natalie Zimmerman, welcome to I Hate Politics.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are running to be a member of the Board of Education in Montgomery County. What do you think this race is about?
We're doing a great job of talking the talk. We're not walking the walk. I have seen plenty of times how we have a budget that does not trickle down all the way to our students, especially our most vulnerable students. For example, with the budget freeze going on right now, I know of multiple schools that don't have any copy paper, that don't have any ink. I was speaking with another educator at their school. They really just don't have any pencils right now, that we're not taking our budget and letting it go down to our students and giving them the things that they need the most. Paper, pencils, those things.
The reason MCPS says that they put a spending freeze on copying and supplies and things like that is because the cost of healthcare for staff had gone up significantly because a lot of staff were, getting Ozempic prescriptions. That's their argument. Is that a valid argument from your point of view?
In our MCPS budget as a whole, we are not taking a hard look at where we have bloat in our system and where we have gaps. We need to be taking that hard look to see what things that are actually student-focused and student-based. I do think that healthcare benefits should not be cut in order to do this.
Where would you cut?
So, not to sound like a consultant, but it's kind of my dream to take MCPS in this triangle of, the very top being like the board, the superintendent pushing down on central office staff, and central office staff pushing down on administrators who push down on our educators, who push down on our students. It's my dream to take all of that and flip it. that the top should be supporting the bottom. That if we are flipping this into a system of support instead of just a system of top pushing down, that we're going to see greater success.
Practically, what does it mean to invert the pyramid that, as you just described?
So if we're told, hey, you have to use this, and this is what the board and central office has picked as our best curriculum, this is what we're going to use. So we're passing this down to administrators, and administrators are supposed to be going into classrooms and seeing that it's being implemented with fidelity. Or we're giving that to our teachers, and our teachers are trying their best. They're trying to supplement, but they know they're not supposed to, that teachers are struggling with this curriculum. And then we're pushing it on to our students, and we know that it's not what's best for students, so they're not being supported. An inverted pyramid would say, hey, let's think about what our students need here and make a choice for them. So if we know that something like...
But is it fair to say that when the curriculum is selected that they did not take into account what students need? I would imagine the people that selected the curriculum would disagree with you.
I think that they might disagree, but I would push back on that. We've known for many years, particularly when it comes to reading, that reading curriculum called the science of reading is what's best for students. And I can get into the actual science behind the science of reading and how it works, but it's essentially a systematic manner in teaching students how to read. So we've known for years that this is what works, but MCPS has not chosen a science of reading curriculum to be implemented until not this current school year, the upcoming school year. So this balanced literacy curriculum that we have was the option that they said was best available. I don't want best available for my students. I want best.
If you go back and look at campaign after campaign after election cycle after election cycle, and they'll tell you exactly, put the student at the center. Make sure that you try to get a curriculum that works and that takes into account, what students need. All of that. And they have all said it in one way or the other. And in fact, if you talk to them, they will actually disagree with you that they have not been doing it. The question really is, despite saying it, do you understand why it is so difficult to get these changes actually going? Why there is talk and no walk?
I think that part of it has to do with the lack of a classroom educator, a recent classroom educator, someone who is familiar with that band of the system and able to say that this policy or this idea won't actually work for students because an educator spends most of their time interacting with students and using the policies that have been implemented on a student level day to day.
Do you think it makes a difference whether that person teaches second grade like you do, or middle school or high school or some other thing? I mean, what level of teaching should those people come from to have the greatest impact in the way that you're looking to have one?
I think something else to consider in here is that, to my understanding, there's not currently a member of the board that comes from an elementary perspective. And that's a perspective that I plan to bring, is this elementary perspective.
Okay, speak to what you think is going on in MCPS classrooms that you can fix.
Absolutely. One of the things that is going on in MCPS classrooms is that we are overworking and creating an untenable workload for so many levels of our system that our students aren't all able to get what they need. So let me kind of paint you a picture. If we think about a student in MCPS, let's say she's in third grade. Let's say she reads above grade level. She does math on grade level. She's not a farm student, nor is she an emergent multilingual learner. Sometimes she's tardy to school, but generally she's present, ready to learn. Her parents are well informed and they care deeply about her success. But with rising costs of living, now both of her parents are working. And so now they're not able to show up to PTA meetings during the day. And the student feels like they're getting less and less time with their parents, and that she feels like everybody's too tired to do things they used to do as a family. But she comes to school, right? Regular day of school. And she loves her reading enrichment group that her teacher usually meets with, let's say on Wednesdays, and today's Wednesday. She came to school eating breakfast, but most of her peers, they eat the waffle, apple, and juice or milk, and she completes an extra assignment while they do so. She would love to be talking with her teacher more about, the things that she did last night and the things that they are both interested in. But her teacher has to take the breakfast and lunch count. She has to take attendance. And she's also working to coax another student into the classroom to start the day, because this other student, they should have a one-on-one paraeducator. But the administrator wasn't able to find anyone qualified to fill the role. And they have other para positions open. And that since those will service more students, that they fill those roles first. So the student only gets para support a few hours a day during academic times. So there's an opportunity that the student and teacher don't get to connect, or that specific student and the teacher don't get to connect. So then once the day starts, the students begin their reading lesson. And we know our student loves reading, and she's so excited to find out what they'll read today. But she notices that the texts that they read about, they're mostly about things that don't interest her, like the invention of Velcro or a bird watching guide. But her teacher is dynamic and fun, and she loves her. Plus, we know that our students really looking forward to this reading enrichment group that with her and her other above grade level peers. But now the English language development teacher, they're supposed to come in and support the 14 emergent multilingual learners in the classroom. But he's been pulled to support a testing accommodations group for fourth grade MCAP testing. So the teacher uses strategies and supports that she learned from the CLD teacher when they did their co-planning time, but there's still only one educator in the room. So when it's time for independent practice, the student that needs the most support, their needs are met first, right? There's not a special educator filling the full-time role. So the teacher meets those needs first. Then the teacher is meeting with those ELD students that they are getting this kind of support. So even though our student has finished her assignment that we've been focused on, she finishes her assignment, the teacher checks the clock and there's only 5 minutes until recess and lunch, and she's not able to meet with this enrichment group. And the student, again, isn't getting to connect with their teacher. They're not getting the things that they want in the classroom.
Where is that money? And where are those teachers you're going to hire so that a teacher can do all this, actually make the connection with this young student?
I think there are some reasonable and low cost ways that we can reduce workload. Currently, our special educators are afforded days to complete their paperwork. And that, I think, is a wonderful opportunity to make sure that our students can still get what they need, but also that our educators can do the massive amounts of paperwork that they need to get done. So what I'm saying is that if part of the problem is that not all of our special educators know that this is afforded to them, so that first needs to be made more clear. But secondly, if we have other opportunities for other educators to complete other paperwork or to complete these other tasks, whether the paperwork is determined to be required or not, if this is what someone's asking them to do and it has to be done, okay, then we need to be making sure that our teachers have enough time to get it done during their workday. So they're not taking all of this extra work home.
You are saying that special education currently has a better model for this paperwork submission where they get a special day to do the paperwork, but regular teachers do not.
In this instance, yes.
The situation in special education is critical. That cannot be the model. There just aren't enough of them, and they have to cover.
But they're also able to put in for a substitute teacher for that day.
But we have a substitute shortage.
Our substitute shortage that was happening earlier, I think that there was some kind of hang up with fingerprinting, et cetera. Our substitute shortage has been getting better. But part of the problem that you might have noticed as well is that our substitute budget was diminished. And that means that even though we still have a demand for substitute teachers, that if we're diminishing the budget that we have for them, then they're not being paid as well. We're not attracting as many.
One of the criticisms of MCPS has been, and at the elementary school level now in particular, is that third graders are not reading at grade level. Do you think we are testing correctly?
I do believe that a lot of our students are struggling to learn to read. The curriculum we've been using, this balanced literacy curriculum in Benchmark Advance, is not teaching students a systematic approach on how to read. In the studies of the science of reading, what we have learned is that by changing our approach to how we teach reading, that if we make it interactive, if we make it multisensory, if we create movement with reading, that then we can catch or we can educate about 98% of kids how to read. By using just balanced literacy, the data shows that really about 50 or 60% of kids will figure it out. So our data isn't wrong. It's our curriculum. That shifting to a curriculum that is data-driven will help fix that. So that's the first step, right? I'm telling you that if we're starting this now, that we're not going to start to see better results until the kids have had time to learn using it. So that's going to be part of what we're seeing with the data. Then if we're getting to the test itself, what is the test asking? What work are the students required to do to show proficiency? That's a whole other animal, right? But if our students aren't able to sound out the words and read them and then understand their meanings, then they're not going to do as well in these third grade comprehension questions.
The science of reading is now a 20-year-old thing. So why has it taken MCPS 20 years to come around to what is seemingly the right way to do things?
I think part of the problem is that we were looking for curriculums that would do different work than what we needed. I think that also in the education world that there were some people that hadn't bought into science of reading until more recently. I think that that's another element of it.
Why is that?
I think some people have a belief that if this is how it's done, that that's how I should continue to do it. I also think that it requires people to confront the idea that maybe for the last 10 years of my career, I wasn't teaching kids the most effective way how to read. And that's really hard because as an educator, your main goal is to do your best and do best by your students.
When you introduce science of reading, you're also going to have the same pushback from teachers who have been doing it the old way for 10 years. And now you're saying, change your ways, do something new, train yourself up. You got to fix the problem. Why should they listen now? They haven't listened in 10 years. And these are your colleagues. We are not even now talking about, Board of Education or central office or anything, right? We're just talking about classroom teachers, and they have pushback.
Yeah. One phrase that I think has been used a few times is this we know better, so we have to do better. I think part of my problem with that is that I think it says then we didn't know very well before. And I don't think that that's true. I think that we were kind of being told, okay, this is the way that you can do this. This is data that we have to support this. If you want to get really into the history of science of reading, it all kind of comes from one study and one strain that led to balanced literacy instead of structured literacy or science of reading. And educators that chose to listen to that, they're not inherently bad. They're not bad teachers. They're not poor educators. If we're looking to change something as we move forward, that then part of it is saying, okay, well, what you did wasn't wrong. That was the best you knew at the time. Now we're coming with this new data and we're coming with a new curriculum.
But they've seen the data before. They know that science of reading exists before, but they rejected it. But now you're saying that they will accept it because why?
I wouldn't posit that everyone knew about science of reading before.
So one of the criticisms about teachers, educators, has been the variability. Like some are good, some are not so good. And I think our discussion that we were having speaks to that. Some people are more willing to accept the latest research, other people are not. How do you address this variability problem among teachers?
I think that some of it has to do with the quality of professional development that teachers are offered. A lot of it is click through, and that's not asking you to actually critically think about something and maybe
professional development for teachers is really bad. I will accept. I will say that, right? So I have seen it. I've worked. I've been in that field. It's fairly atrocious, to be honest with you. The problem is that it is chosen by other teachers, that it is created by senior teachers, often teachers that have a lot of experience, and they put together these they make these choices and put them, and in the end it doesn't work. I mean, I totally get, most teachers I've talked to have said bad things about PD.
Absolutely.
But they're chosen by other teachers, right? Who chooses them?
Well, if we want to say that other teachers are choosing them, I think that sometimes that can be true, but I don't think that that's always the case. Like, some of the professional development that we are being offered is not from other teachers. It's offered from the county itself. That, for example, over the summer for elementary educators, we had another firm, we had other consultants come in and talk about teaching reading to students. So in that regard, it's not actually coming from other educators. It's coming from these educational consultants.
So when it comes from consultants, is it any better?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I think.
So how do you fix that variability problem? I mean, it's still a variability problem, right? Whether it's to do with PD, whether it's to do with teachers, how do you build a standard in a system that is so variable?
Part of eliminating some of these inconsistencies requires a physical presence of people in leadership. So if members of the board are willing to go to these different professional development opportunities and sit through it and go, oh, that didn't teach about this, or they're going into a classroom and going, oh, this educator skipped over this part of the curriculum, that if we don't have people that are physically in the space to see what's going on, then we are going to miss some of these inconsistencies. So I think part of what we need is people that are willing to go in, and then bringing it back to, as someone who's an educator, if I'm sitting in that PD, I might be able to pick up, oh, that this person skipped over this part.
Isn't the problem that, you would have a certain band of expertise, and there are things outside that band of expertise that you will not be able to speak to, meaning by which that, do board members really have to be that specialist, or can they be generalists?
I think part of this too, kind of what you're getting at, is that, of course I can't know everything. And, I don't think we'd expect any person to know everything. But then that relies on what relationships you have and who you communicate with to help you get that other information, to help you gain that perspective.
Natalie Zimmerman, thank you for taking the time Good luck in the campaign.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
That's second grade MCPS teacher Natalie Zimmerman, now running for the Montgomery County Board of Education in District 2. You can find her at zimmerman4boe.com. Please remember that every voter in Montgomery County gets to vote in all Board of Education races. The BOE voting is at large. Board of Education districts are for candidacy alone. This is a big difference between the County Council and the Board of Education. Music for this episode comes from Kensington resident Adam Bobrow. If you want to share your music on the show or know someone else who might want to, please email us at producer@ihppod.org. I hope you'll listen, like, and share the show as we bring you stories about politics close to you and to your home. See you next time.